Hey.
All right.
Hey, everybody. How are you doing today? On a Wednesday, night.
A Wednesday night. For all of you who were wondering why we showed up 4 minutes late, we'll be perfectly honest. We were having some technical challenges here for the first time since we've started this, but we think we've solved them. This is why we all went into live theater. There are no technical challenges. Just put the play in.
Yeah.
Anyway, hi. So, Felicia, Joe, Rick Dresser. The other technical challenge we have is because we have 6 guests tonight, which is great. We have a limit. We have a limit of 10, so we had to lose one of us. So James Anthony Tyler, brilliant playwright and our partner and co-artistic director, volunteered to vote himself off the island rather quickly, I must say. So he's going to be able to jump in when Rick drops off?
Yeah, you know what? But so James and Richard are going to kind of like go back and forth. So we may see James tonight.
So
don't know.
We'll see James because right after this, I'm going to get off so he can get on.
Oh, here it is.
Think that'll work? Well, we'll find out.
Well,
This is the most exciting theater we've done all summer, right here. We have no idea how it's going to turn out in the third act. So just if this is your first time watching, it's a sort of a freewheeling conversation with 6 really interesting people from all facets of the theater business and beyond. And if you've seen it before, then you already know that. It's our 3rd broadcast, the final one for the summer. And I guess that's about all you need to know at this point. Other than, I would say this, I say this at the end, but now I'll say it at the beginning. These are hard times financially for everyone. And as I know you know, regional theaters and all theaters are in a bit of trouble because there's nothing to perform and no tickets to sell. So if ever we're thinking about making a contribution to Berkshire Playwrights Lab, this would be the time to act on that instinct. And the same for our partner, by the way, the Berkshire Museum up in Pittsfield. So, okay, I guess should we ditch Rick and try James and then go?
Joe, let me just say one thing. This is the last off the cuff for the summer, but we've got 4 coming up, 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring, and we have a deep lineup of people we really, really want to talk to, and people have been very eager to join this conversation. So this is it. We're going to be down for the summer, but we'll be back. I hope that doesn't sound like a threat, but we will be back. All right, so I'm going to go.
Yep. Well, James texted.
No. Yeah,
okay. All right.
Yeah, we'll just see James. If he has a question, he'll come through.
Okay.
All right, Rick, we'll see you later. If you have a question, you can pop in too.
Okay.
All right. So, why don't we just bring everybody on? Hi, nice to see you. I haven't seen you since this morning.
Okay. I know. So we can go ahead and get started with introducing our lovely guests because we have a lot of good people in for today's show. So I'm really excited about everyone. We're going to start off with Lisa Arundel. I hope I'm saying her name right. So let me tell you about Lisa. Lisa is from the Boogie Down Bronx. She is on stage. She's in television. She's making movies. She's been in one of my favorite movies, or actually a couple of my favorite movies. The Immortal, the one with Oprah. Oh my gosh, how do I forget it? The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, Disappearing Acts, right. HBO's A Lesson Before Dying. Like, she's been in a lot of stuff. She's been on stage. She's on everything. So without further ado, let's introduce Lisa Arundel.
Yeah. Hello, Felicia. Hello, audience. How are you all doing?
We're doing great. So nice to see you.
Great to see you. I'm so glad for the invitation. Thank you.
So Melia Bensussen is an Obie-winning director who's directed at pretty much every regional theater in the country, I think. And then for 10 years, she chaired the theater department at Emerson College, an institution near and dear to my heart. And now she was recently named artistic director at Hartford Stage in Connecticut, which is a great thing. And so she's joined us tonight, and we're grateful. So, Melia, come on in.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really pleased to be here. And hello, Lisa. It's great to share a screen with you.
Joe and I are just so happy when people say yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, who says no to Joe and Felicia and Rick? You'd have to be out of your mind to say no to you guys.
You're too
Glad to be here.
All right. So our next guest. So now this woman, she actually founded a whole theater festival for Black playwrights. It's the Fire This Time Festival, which one of our artistic directors, James Tyler, has had. She showcased some of his work. But she's not only a founder of a whole theater festival, she's also a producer, and she's an award-winning playwright. So without further ado, let's introduce Kelley Nicole Girod, which is such a nice name. Yeah, that's such a nice name.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Kelly. Wonderful to be here with you all. And Lisa, I've also enjoyed your work. And Melia, I have tons of friends who said to tell you hi because you have directed them in some capacity over the years.
Awesome. This is we all get to sort of exchange all our connections, which is so wonderful.
Yeah, it's always a reunion. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring on a guy I've known I wanted to tell you how long, because then you know how old I am. But he's kind of an actor's actor. If you send him a play, it's a new play, he pretty much says yes, particularly if it doesn't pay much. He's that kind of guy. And Lauria, I guess, came to fame playing the dad on a Wonder Years, that iconic show years ago. And but he does tons of plays on and off Broadway and regionally. I mean, he really does love to go around. And he's been a great supporter of nonprofit theater and new plays all his life. Berkshire audiences, because I know there's a lot of you out there from Berkshires, saw him at the Mahawi as Vince Lombardi in Lombardi, and then it went to Broadway with Tommy Kail directing. And what else can I say? My friend Dan, coming in from LA.
Hey, Dan.
And I have no problem saying no to Joe Cacaci. No problem saying no to Joe Cacaci.
Yes.
I said I have no problem saying no. I'm on a delay, so I got to wait on you. I just came to see you beautiful ladies.
Thanks, Dan.
LA.
I had the honor of directing Dan at the Long Wharf. He was brilliant. So, Dan, I have to drag you to Hartford now.
Anytime. Any new play, I'm there. I'll come hang the lights if it's a new play.
Me too. I will hold the ladder.
On stage. There is
You don't have to hang the lights.
I'm no fool.
I know that's right.
Yeah. The last line on my bio is still there. Dan does not do plays by old dead white guys.
Awesome.
I've seen that a number.
You got to come to the fire this time, then.
Yes.
Yeah, love to.
All right.
You're on.
All right.
Oh, okay, and our next guest. So now this man, he is the executive director of the Harlem School of the Arts, which this theater house is so dear to me because every year they would do a play, like they had because they teach art to kids and adults, but they would do this play called Soul Christmas, and my kids live for it every Christmas. We're like, we have to see it. We have to see this play. But this is not the only thing this man has done. He's also a visual artist. He studied at Tyler School of the Arts, Temple University, and from my hometown, Detroit, Wayne State University. So without further ado, here's Eric Pryor.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's great to be here with you guys. I feel, I'll be honest with you, coming out the visual arts and all this theater energy here, I'm going to try to project.
I sense you do this well.
You wait a minute, weren't you at Paper Mill Playhouse at one point years ago?
I was on the board at Paper Mill Playhouse.
Okay.
There you go. That's your theater cred. Right?
There it is.
Yep.
So I think we got one more. Who is it? Oh, right. So this guy, he's the only guy I know who's won Tony Awards, Emmy Awards, Golden Globe Award, like over the years. Most recent Tony, I think, was The Band's Visit. And I believe he's up again for an Emmy Award for Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I don't know if it's the second time or the third time. I lose track. Anyway, he's been a great supporter of BPL. He's done a lot for us, appearing with us, and supporting us, and just an all-around wonderful human being. Tony Shalhoub.
Who?
Hi, can you guys hear me, or am I muted, or what?
No, you're perfect.
All good.
Careful, you're not muted.
Okay.
You know what, Tony? Someone just commented since you came on. She's like, Tony, with a little smiley face.
The star.
Nadia Green.
That was
With his wife, Brooke.
that was me.
So Felicia, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So listen. Every day there's something going on, and we just want to kind of just start with what's keeping everyone, or if anything's keeping you up at night. No, there's like silent. No one's smiling anymore. I know it's very.
I'd say the opposite. Like, does anybody sleep? I mean, that's more my question.
Good one.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Well,
Okay, so I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do sleep. But if you ask the question, what keeps you up? I'm imagining that means what's unnerving me, what's getting under my skin.
Yeah.
What's painful, what's uncomfortable. And it's really difficult to see that these things keep happening. I feel strange talking about this because we're in an artistic forum here, but I also feel like out of all of this pain, we're still waiting to hear justice happen for Breonna Taylor. We are now that what has come into to our landscape is a father being gunned down in his back while his children watch. It's very unnerving. And I don't know how we're going to create the dialogue that's necessary, but it seems that these world events that have been happening since time began, they only change as a result of dialogue. Somehow, we have to speak and then act, and speak and act. And I know that our stage, which we're not on right now, I know that somehow our stage has to become a place, or maybe this is the stage, the screen, where we are talking about Jacob Blake, where we're talking about Breonna Taylor, where we're talking about, and I wish that there were no more names, but the names keep adding up. So that's what gets under my skin, especially because my name could easily be on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Like, easily be on that list.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you started there, Lisa, because I mean, I think that I do sleep for a few hours at night, but I think it's very emblematic what wakes me up. It's my daughter crawling into my bed. And
How old is she, Kelley?
I have a 3-year-old and I have a 5-year-old.
Oh, that's awesome. That's just awesome.
And I should mention that I am actually one of 10 children from Louisiana. And every day I text my mother. Yay! Yeah. It's awesome sometimes.
Yes.
But
everybody needs a hobby.
Yeah. I'm not trying to replicate what my parents did. I'll put it to you that way. But yeah, I mean, I think when you grow up of color, and especially in a place like Louisiana, you will always have a sense of fear. You always know that, like, okay, I need to make sure I'm sitting by the exits. I need to make sure that you're always trying to keep yourself safe. And I think it's very different when you have your own children, when you become a Black mother and you see these things happening in real time, and you realize that it's like it could, your children, there is always, you live with the fear of, you know the history of enslaved Africans, you know the history of enslaved women and how their children were taken from them. You live with that fear even as a young girl of color. And then when you become a mother and you're like, oh wow, like that could actually happen. It is it's terrifying, you know. And I don't think that you're wrong, Lisa, to say that, this is a creative space, and so I think that I don't think that those conversations can exist outside of each other. I mean, I think that if we're, because of the Fire This Time, when what I produce, the stories are always so topical. So the conversation that's happening on the street is always in our theater every year. And I think that I hope that this time proves that we need to be a little bit more aware of that. And what is our, broadening, I guess, the obligations of theater to community. That's my thing.
I would, in terms of what keeps me up, I have a 18-year-old that's about to be a freshman at NYU and a 14-year-old in high school. And I would just say our kids, I mean, for me, as a 57-year-old man, my parents, when I was raised, we were raised, it was a climate in America where a young Black child my age, and I'm one of 6, we were taught, and from the earliest age, how to move in public to avoid what's happening now. So weirdly, for me, I'm not so afraid for me, because the threat has been there since day one. And as much as I hate to look at it as it becoming a sense normalized in my head, I guess like a lot of us, I thought we had turned a corner in some way in America. And I thought that our children, but what worries me, a lot of the children, today's young people, and working with young people at Harlem School of the Arts, they have a certain freedom that I never had as a child. When we went out in public, we were, my father and mom, it was very regimented how we behaved. And it wasn't until I was older that I realized that was in protecting me. So, me or my siblings wouldn't become an Emmett Till and find ourselves in that situation. When I look at my daughters and their peers, they weren't raised that way. My daughters, all they knew is President of the United States in their mind was Barack Obama. So they never saw what I've seen. So that keeps me up at night on a personal level, just on an industry level. Being New York City, we have a 37,000 square foot facility. New York is a brick and mortar town, and to see it empty, to see our theaters empty, to see just, people not being there, the energy that it's known for not being there. When is that going to come back? And knowing that that's connected to people who we've had to lay people off. I've had to lay people off. I've had to furlough people. That keeps me up at night. So there's actually a couple things that are keeping me up.
I would agree. I mean, I took over Hartford Stage a year ago, and it's an extraordinary staff there. And I had to lay off so many people. And because of this country's politics, they don't have health insurance. And I will admit that this week with the Republican National Convention, I'm beside myself. So I'm not so helpful because I'm enraged, and I'm wondering when we'll stop with the lies and how we'll unite in some way as a country. So I grew up in Mexico City, and as a Jew in Mexico City, and it was incredibly anti-Semitic. So it's in no way the same as being Black in this country. But I will say the the fear of your day-to-day life resonates for me, and the politics at this moment. The pandemic was bad enough. Hurricanes and fires are bad enough. And then on top of it, we have lies and lies and lies in this country. So this week I'm not sleeping. I'm not sure I'll sleep till November or December, because God only knows when this will end. So I'll stop now. Someone else speak who's rational and sensible and not as enraged and desperate as I feel right now.
It might be all of us, Melia.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I just don't understand where we are, you know?
Dan, you trying?
My family is Holocaust survivors, and our line has always been, well, we would have left Berlin in 1932. Well, I'm afraid it's 1933 and no one's leaving. Of course, no one will let us in. So we can't even get into Germany if we tried. So there's that. Dan, you were going to say something and I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I'm a little bit on a delay, but what keeps me awake at night is the loss of our voice in the theater. I mean, we can all be on a little frame like this, and we're all pundits like you see on TV, and we're all saying the right thing. But first of all, we're preaching to the choir 90% of the time. But
Right.
when you see a play like American Son, I don't care who you are, you leave moved. And we've lost that voice that would help so much, not in COVID, with Black Lives Matter, with unions trying to come back. All these things lost their voice in the theater. And I personally, and I hope I'm wrong, I don't think even when we get a vaccine, New York is going to be the way it was. I think we're going to have to get people like Tony and I and all of you to get out there in regional theater with a new play that speaks something, and then maybe we can get it back to New York or Chicago or LA. But I don't think people are just going to rush, go to that island and be around other people, concerts, plays, or lectures. I just don't see that happening, even if we have a vaccine. But I do see it in a regional theaters. So I think we all need to find it.
Screen has an open invite to Hartford Stage. I'd be honored.
Yeah, I'm there.
I agree with Dan
about your projects. I mean, you're all welcome.
Yeah, I agree with Dan in the sense that I think that it will be challenging to bring New York back to any state of normalcy if it ever was normal. But on the other hand, and not to be too Pollyanna-ish about it, I think out of all of this darkness and strife, possibly just in terms of theater now, it's possible that will be a good thing, because it will redefine and reestablish how work, new works, important works get done. There were one of the issues, I think, as much theater as there was in New York, I think there was it was not that easy to get kind of interesting and innovative and kinds of pieces that were really going to move the needle. I mean, there are exceptions like Hamilton and things like that, Band's Visit, I suppose, but we might be getting back to a place where the regional theaters will provide the outlet to do those kinds of less commercial, more important pieces that eventually, like Dan is hinting at, can find their way into larger metropolitan areas like New York. So I think that's a long-term proposition, but that's what, when I'm tossing and turning in the middle of the night, those are the kinds of things that can kind of get me back to sleep. I try to remain optimistic. It's frustrating because we're not working, and the more time that goes on that we're not working, the more we feel that we're not ourselves, because we're
So true.
those of us who are writers, those of us who are directors or performers, we're sort of defined by what we do.
Yeah.
And if we're not doing it, then who the hell are we, and what the hell are we, and what's our,
exactly
what's
right.
our point?
That's exactly right. Who
Yeah.
feels
But there've been other,
a little
I just want
disconnected,
to
right?
piggyback onto that. There's one, this is a very different kind of time. It's maybe it's unprecedented, but there have been times in our past when there have been almost what seemed like insurmountable challenges. People were blacklisted. People were, there were times when things were shut down and people were constrained and restrained. And I think we just have to, somehow figure out a way to persevere.
I wanted to add to that, and I'm so glad that you said that, Tony, because I think the perspectives are so interesting here, because for a very, very long time, theater wasn't working for a lot of us. I can tell you, for 12 years since I graduated from grad school, Columbia's MFA program, I have been producing Black playwrights, Black actors, Black directors, Black dramaturgs, Black stage managers. There's something like we produced over 70 something playwrights, and until now, it took now for a lot of institutions that should have been paying attention to these artists. Now they came knocking at the door. It took this for them to say there's a problem, when all along we have been saying your administrations are problematic because we don't see ourselves. How can you possibly program anything that speaks to us if you have no idea? It's like, so many of us, this is a hopeful time. It's a hopeful time because a lot of us are suddenly working.
Yeah.
A lot of us are suddenly getting phone calls from AMC saying, hey, what writing do you have? And we're like, what? Like, me? So I do remain hopeful, because I don't know how the system was ever going to survive as it existed.
Yeah.
It almost needed an entire reset.
Maybe it was
unsustainable
hopeful. In a
Sorry.
way.
Yeah.
Maybe it was unsustainable. You're right. And maybe, as tragic as things are now, upheaval can sometimes, can sometimes really not just be a positive thing, but can sometimes be the only way that the needle, that you get the needle to move. Otherwise, we're in a stasis. There's a complacency that's just it's so destructive and sort of it ultimately sort of paralyzing and debilitating. So the pot is, it's getting stirred up. Things are getting stirred up.
Yeah. Yeah, we like stir. Yeah. One of the things that I feel that when I hear, people having the conversations about what's happening now is the whole idea of like, how did, we're here now, like what happened? How did we get here? And that sometimes to me is very, okay. Let me see. I'm trying to think about what emotions I feel when I hear people say that, because it's like, okay, you mean we were standing here for I don't know how many years, like 400 years, and you didn't realize, you didn't see us, like really, and for us to just now kind of be like, oh, I didn't know a problem existed. I'm like, it feels a little disingenuous, to say the least,
I have a question just to piggyback on a couple of things that you've been saying. In terms of a reset, or I like to think of it as, well, I don't like to think of it as anything, a reset or an awakening. Aside from having plays from more voices and being performed by more people, from true diversity, aside from that being the right thing to do and the just thing to do, which it is, I guess my Pollyanna moment is that I kind of feel like, of course, that's going to make for a much more interesting theater. And of course, that's going to make for more audiences. And of course, that's going to just lift the whole fucking thing up higher than it ever was, because it's just that many more points of view that were hidden but not allowed to be brought out. So it's only going to be a better thing. So as painful as this is, it is, and for me, nothing compared to a lot of you on the screen here, and a lot of other people, I hope that at least on the other side of it, it's an explosion of something that really takes us to a different place. And I take it back. I don't think that's Pollyanna. I think that's logical. I think that's
right. I mean, I would just say for Hartford Stage, we had started a lot of community partnerships before COVID, right? I've been there a year, but in the time I was there, really felt like what Hartford Stage had not been doing was building community relationships. I mean, genuine relationships with the community college, Capital Community College, half a block from us, and Christ Church Cathedral across the street, which has an extraordinary population of Latinx parishioners. So we had posadas and Christmas Carol in Spanish, and we started a babysitting program. I mean, how to engage the people we're living amongst, right? And so to turn to Tony's, I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm really a pessimist in my soul. I'm kind of a depressive. So this extrovert cheerful thing is all bullshit, but that's okay. But yeah, I know. Thank you, Lisa. I really, the laughter is the only thing, right? But what what this moment has given us is time to engage more fully with our community partners. Hartford Stage has a similar broadcast called Seen and Heard that has been weekly and is now turning to monthly. But we've been featuring our community partners, our Black dads talking about their journeys as sons and fathers, talking about students at Capital Community College who are mostly in their late 20s or early 30s and are struggling to find daycare. We're trying to provide daycare for those parents so they can come see the shows as well as take their classes. This is an opportunity. I mean, the pain I feel is the number of people who've been laid off and the number of freelance artists who we all love and feel connected to, who are worried about health insurance. I'm sorry to go back to that, but that's really my fear, right? I feel like there's a lot of hopefulness in what we can make, but I just wish there was a way to bring everybody back in a more supportive environment. That's all. I'm very grateful for the Black Lives Matter manifesto because we're translating it at Hartford Stage in terms of, I don't know if all of you watching are aware, but there's a document called We See You White American Theater, which has really been crucial for what we call PWIs, primarily white institutions, to kind of reorient themselves and to think about, as Kelley was speaking about, what representation really means. And I feel like part of the gift of this time is to translate this document into our own regions and communities and see where they speak to anti-Black issues as well as anti-Semitism and misogyny and any number of crises that are now being exposed in this country. So there are pluses. I agree with you, Tony. There's a way of being optimistic. I just worry about people's livelihoods, and I'm not optimistic about that. I'm sorry, I'm just not. Dan, you were gonna say something. I'm sorry, I didn't. I railroaded you again. I'm having the honor to direct Dan Lauria. Now I'm like steamrolling him.
The optimism is getting to me. The optimism is getting to me. It's like you guys are all a half is glass full, and I keep hearing a half is glass empty. To me, it's just a half a glass of water. And to get on to what you and Tony were saying, Joe, I do see an explosion coming out after this, but it's not going to be in the theater. It's going to be on a very, it's going to be a very synthetic and sterilized way of doing Zoom better. It's not going to have that visceral feeling that we get when we see a new play. Now, to take it a step forward, what will happen when all this sanitation of performance comes down? We're already down to talking heads editing on every TV show there is. Eventually, two guys, me and Tony, doing a play on 43rd on a street corner on 43rd and Broadway, directed by Joe Cacaci, with Lisa in there. Well, if that's what it has to be, then that's what's going to be, because we're the type of people who are not going to let it die. And sooner or later, seeing something live is going to mean something. This is why when they had the debate in SAG, only Ed Asner and I were the only ones who wanted to bring equity into the union, because we both said in 10 years from now, the only thing worth anything is going to be live. And so I agree with you, Joe. At the end of this, something good. There's going to be an explosion. A lot of great writers are going to get a chance who never got a chance. A lot of choruses are going to get a voice. But it's not going to be as powerful as seeing a good play live, even if we have to do it on a street, like Joe Papp with the truck where the side went down the stage.
I'm talking about theater. That's my 2 points. No, I was talking about doing theater live. I'm projecting to when we can be back on stages and there can be audiences again, that at that point the material that they will see will be very different or than they've been seeing. That was my point. I agree with you.
Dan,
yeah,
can I just say, Dan,
Joe, we're going to have to go
if we're going to do this,
first.
if you and I are going to do this play on 43rd Street, I'm still going to need a good dressing room. I'm going to need something. It's going to have to be. It's going to have to be
I
big.
lost
My
you.
dressing room's going to have to be bigger than yours. I'm just going to put that out there.
Well, I hear the Starbucks bathroom got a mirror, so we can use that.
Okay.
TV spoils you guys. I just want to say.
I like the bathroom at the Starbucks around the corner.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do it on that.
I want to
please
jump in here as somebody that's not in administration. I'm on the stage, but in my experience over the past year working at the stage and working at the Billie Holiday, in particular, I think of Arena Stage. Besides these institutions that, like Kelley mentioned, they're calling now, looking for the African-American writer, because I think there's a bit of fear. I think beyond that, broaden the desire for creativity besides fear is this idea that needs to happen that our audience, the subscription audience, is far more intelligent and liberal, or maybe not liberal, they're conservative, perhaps, or I believe they are, but I think that they're intelligent. I really do. Maybe that's unfortunately my optimism.
You're right.
I feel like, particularly our seniors, because it's their dollars that really, I know, our seniors really support live theater. I think that they are in a season of life where they're very clear about mortality, where they're very clear about the things that they were afraid of, they didn't have to be afraid of. I think they're in a position to receive the broadness, the opening wide of what is happening on stage. I don't think they're going to be tolerating. I think they're going to be refreshed. I think they will be put in a position as elders, as wisdom holders, because they are. I mean, I know our culture does not really regard our elders, and that's to our demise. But I think that the subscription audiences who are supporting the successful theaters in America, that they would welcome the intelligence, the education, the open-mindedness, the challenge, and we don't challenge them enough. And I think that they're ready for it. And I think that part of the courage, right? The courage is go ahead and speak to their intelligence and to their wisdom experience and to their second half of life largeness. When we are in the second half of life, I think our fear tends to recede. And that's what we need. I think one of the things, anyway, that we need.
I love what you're saying. I do think we underestimate our audiences and we underestimate the country. And we underestimate the possibility for transformation.
Yeah.
So thank you.
But I also would just add that I think that we have to always be thinking expansively and where to bring in audience that may not be necessarily getting content. And by that, with that I mean when I look at where they get their content may be in danger. When I look at, I'm part of a group. When I look at Harlem Schoolyards and National Black Theater, the Apollo, Schomburg. I mean, it's probably 12 or more Harlem Stage cultural institutions, many of them who in this year where we're all trying to survive the aftermath or what's going on in COVID, who don't have reserves, don't have these huge endowments. These are institutions that really are, I mean, Lisa, you've been at HSA, you know how easy it is if somebody wanted to come workshop something to say, hey, Eric, or come to us and say, hey, we need access to the theater or access to, dance studios. I think right now we're in a moment where a good friend of mine is an emergency room doctor. The patient is in the emergency room and we better figure out how to keep the patient alive. And in this instance, I'm looking at institutions because as this moment wanes and those people who are knocking at doors or ringing our phone who never rang it before, maybe that I'm not so optimistic that they're going to keep ringing as things normalize, and when that happens, a similar thing I would just say, I mean, the euphoria when things became integrated and there were all these wonderful communities with Black businesses, Negro League Baseball had it. A lot of that dried up with integration. And I think we have to be careful and make certain that, we maintain certain platforms. When I look at the Billie Holiday Theater in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, it's critical. They serve as a population with live theater, in Bedford-Stuyvesant with content that speaks to them, that challenges them. And it's important that remain, even as doors may open at larger, whether it be larger theaters around New York or in the area. I just put that out there, and also just the other thing I think about, our founder Dorothy Maynard was an opera singer. When I look at things like opera, or if I look at jazz idioms where people are concerned with its future, one of the things they're recognizing is that they have to make certain that the youth have access and have an ability to appreciate. So I say that to say we got to figure out and make certain that our young people I have 2 daughters, they're on devices, and so that live theater, live performance is something that they have been exposed to and have a desire for. Otherwise, we don't want to see live theater on the endangered species list.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I've been down at East 4th Street for the past 12 years, and I have such a fondness for small spaces. Black boxes are my favorite place to both produce, and as a writer, when I'm thinking, I'm always thinking in that space because I think it's so exciting whenever you have when you create within limitations. I mean, and I've been doing that for a long time because I used to just make my brothers and sisters be the cast members, so I'm just used to that. But I don't know that it's such a bad idea that we go back to thinking in that way. Right now we just got the guidelines out, and you can have up to 30 audience members in a space. I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to sign up to do that anytime soon. But I think about what is the impact of smaller, more intimate spaces. I don't know how it works from a business model, but there's that part of it that I'm optimistic about. But also, we also just got the ability to use an outdoor space next to the Merchants Museum that we will share with the other theaters on East 4th Street to do live theaters outdoors. And Eric and Lisa, you both mentioned Billie Holiday, and I was there as producing director when Marjorie Moon was transitioning out and Indira was coming in. And I just remembered that, there was theater happening everywhere around there. There's that beautiful big outdoor space right behind the theater, right across the street. There was always people in the park. And, what a wonderful time to bring back that outdoor theater. And then just the last thing I'll say, that I do think that I think it is a good thing that we have embraced some digital platform for the theater, because it wasn't until I was at the Sheen Center, which was the first theater I was at that was fully ADA compliant. I mean, they thought about people who were differently able-bodied from every aspect, even in the bathrooms where the hooks were placed so that people who were in wheelchairs could close the bathroom door behind them. And it just blew my mind. And so I think about what's possible for people who have difficulty getting to the theater. And there are a lot of people who have what we call invisible illness. My best friend just passed away from lupus in February. She had an invisible illness. She always looked amazing, but she was very sick. She couldn't come out to the theater as much as she wanted to. What would it mean to her to be able to participate in some aspect of that if we opened ourselves up more to the digital platform? So again, I still remain optimistic about all the things that are opening up to us right now, that we had either just maybe didn't even think about,
Agreed. I mean, I would only add that it all takes funding, right? I mean, I'd love nothing more than Hartford Stage to have every production live on stage and also streamed, right? I'd love that. I'm a failed communist, a failed socialist, and now I'm a failed capitalist. I mean, I haven't found an economic system that actually works for me. But I'm just going to say that until we have more support for these institutions, for all of our institutions, because I'm totally with you, Kelley. I mean, this is crucial to continue our online platforms. I've heard it from my subscribers and from folks in our community. It's just, there's also then the people going, well, I see NT Live or Broadway HD, or I saw Hamilton on Disney. Why can't you do that? And it's millions of dollars to do that kind of work, right? We know that. So it's a complicated question of how to fund our arts institutions. Mm-hmm. So I turn to all of you watching this, whatever you can give to this tremendous organization, or to whatever theater matters to you. I mean, where in order to create access, we need funding to make access possible, and our government is not doing it. Right?
I was going to ask a question. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask a question. Do you think that the government should, provide money for the arts?
Say it again, please. That phone kind of.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I said, do we think that the government should, perform? I mean, excuse me. Do we think that the government should provide money for, for the arts?
I think we have to view ourselves as essential workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone on this, I mean, talk about preaching to the choir, but the moral and intellectual health of a nation is judged by its arts.
Mm-hmm.
And the extraordinary people represented here, I exclude myself, but all of you, what you've contributed to this country is beyond measure. And that's where the real dialogue is happening. And we're not supporting it as a country. And we're also, I mean, regional theaters, forgive me on this, but we're founded with the idea of corporate support, which has gone away, and foundational support is suffering. So we really have to think about how we continue to support arts organizations, museums, symphonies, small theaters, large theaters, ballet companies, orchestras. I mean, we're all in danger because there's really not a sense yet. We have to mobilize. We have to really fight to define ourselves as essential to this country's future.
Well, I just want to take that question one step farther, and this is maybe the producer in me, but the last year I've had the opportunity to work in London a fair amount, as has James Tyler on a different play. And it's obvious what the difference is. So the question is, do any of us believe there's anything we can actually do, you use the word mobilize, to change that paradigm so that there is government support for the arts here in the States the way there is in the UK and everywhere else in Europe, where, I talked to theaters over there who are now getting back to business because they were rescued in part by the government, who values what they do for all the reasons you just said. So the question is, we're all people who are sort of entrepreneurial and take the bull by the horns and all those metaphors. What can we do? And I know Dan, I see you shaking your head. You and I have talked about this for years, but that's just not good enough anymore. And I don't mean you. I mean the fact that we can't. We gotta. What can we do? What strategy can we change to make this case? Or is it the glass not only half empty but totally empty? I don't know. Anybody?
I don't have an answer at all, right? But it just seems to me, if every single platform, which is ridiculous, shut down for 7 days, every single platform of art.
That's kind of brilliant. Yeah.
No music, no reruns, nothing. Mm-hmm. Like how our country would have been impacted over the past 6 months with nothing available.
Oh, I love this. Lisa, you've got to start this. I mean,
how do we do that? I don't know. But no, like nothing. You can get nothing. It's just you and your family, or you and your dog. Just you for 7 days. I don't know.
Fucking brilliant. I'm totally.
Dan, you're trying to talk. I know you're on this leg, so every time
Dan. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I think part of the answers were already given. Eric talked about getting information out to an audience. And somebody talked about supporters. And whenever I was asked, when I do these lectures at theater at college, when people want to know, why are there so many plays with a Jewish theme or a gay theme? And the answer is very simple. They support theater. Why do they support theater? Because they're getting the information. Like Eric says, it's not brain surgery. You got to get info to an audience that has been denied this information. And the other thing, and I'm totally against this, I know Tony's going to jump all over me, especially after I saw him do The Price better than I did. I think the stars have to stop doing revivals on Broadway. I think they're needed at our colleges and our institutions, but the stars have to take the new writers and they have to go to regional theaters, get the information out, and it saves the New York producers money because the tryouts are. So information, support, stars. And when it comes to the government, I would, if you read what Bannon wrote in Breitbart, you would never suggest that in this country, because when these people that are in there now, when they come in, they are going to not only, they'll get money, but only if you do the plays that support them. And if you don't believe, if you think that's too far-fetched, read Bannon's, when he was the editor of Breitbart, what he said. He actually called the arts a breeding ground for treason.
Really?
Yep. So
Good.
that's it. Go ahead.
Good to be a breeding ground for treason. That is our job. We should be mainstream. We should be middle
You're not
class.
going to get funding that way. You're talking about money. You're not
know.
going to get funding that way.
Oh, you're right, Dan. You're absolutely right.
Dan, you bring up, I mean, when we're talking about this, we're talking about the country. So I guess my question is, you know, with theater, we reach a relatively small audience, okay? But what can we do, and what can we really do that can shift the attitudes about race and about gender and mental illness in the world? Like, what can we really do?
You got to do what Hamilton did. You go, yeah, you're going to go and you're going to get people who say, look, I'd rather make $5 million on this by showing it live 4 times than running 2 years on Broadway.
Okay, but outside of like a theater sense, you know, outside of like theater, what can we do as just individuals?
Did you
push this
I don't know anything outside of this. That's why I'm with you guys.
I would just say you got to educate the people, you know, in your circle, the people around you. I think that people, we have friends. I think we have to speak truth to our friends. And oftentimes, you know, I live in a very diverse community, and oftentimes, you know, it's easy to just not be political and not necessarily bring certain things up that are uncomfortable. But I think we're coming to a point where more uncomfortable conversations have to occur. There has to be just more candor. You know, I know people have said, "Oh, you know," as the things were unfolding with George Floyd. Well, you're not subject to that, Eric. You're president of Harlem School of the Arts, and not recognizing that, you know, I've been profiled multiple times in my life. You know, even times that, you know, I've even had situations. I know, funny one, my wife and my daughters, we were in Washington for a conference. They were, "Oh, come, run across the street. Bill Clinton, we just met him. We want you to come." And they want me to run across the street towards a former president. I'm like, honey, I'm 6'5", black man, 200. I'm not running towards Bill Clinton.
Exactly. Running,
you know, and it's just, you know, and just, I think, you know, we just got to have more candid, honest conversations with one another about what we're experiencing. I mean, I think that's from a perspective of being a black man, or the perspective of what women are dealing with. I think we have to get it, you know, and speak, you know, truth to it.
Yeah. So, you know, I know, Kelley, you brought up We See You, or who brought up We See You? No, Melia, you brought up the We See You. And so there's like 2 groups. I think there's We See You, and there's somebody else. I can't remember the group of black artists that got together and wrote a letter in terms of, you know, like sort of what they expect from theaters. But I just want to know, are there any type of like white groups that wrote a letter, or, you know, that came out and said, okay, this is what we're going to do, or this is what we see, or anything? Does anybody know? And if not, why? I guess why?
That's a great question. We're much. It's a brilliant question. We're in response mode as opposed to initiating action mode. Felicia, I find that really an inspiring question. Thank you for that. Right. You know, there isn't. There's responding to the document and the demands, but there's not, you know, a separate initiative. So it's an interesting question.
So maybe there should be.
I agree. I'm very moved by that. I think, you know, Lisa's left us, but, you know, she's going to start the boycott of all entertainment for a week. And Joe, you and I should start, you and I and Dan and Tony can start here's white theater artists demand list. Thanks to this one episode. This is really good. I don't mean to be light. It's serious. The challenge, I will just say at this moment, is so economic as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make light of how much we need to do anti-racist work at these institutions. I know it's true of the theater I helm, but I worry about the economic challenges facing our industry, and I don't think we're going to recover in a way that is any way reflective of what we looked like before the pandemic.
Which means we will have to alter the way we do business. And
we're going to lose a lot of colleagues. And we're going to lose a lot of institutions.
Perhaps. Eric, I wonder when you at the Harlem School, so obviously you're educating people, training people to be artists, performing artists, or all artists. And how much of the training also would you say involves just the kind of stuff we're talking about? In other words, not just the dance part and the singing part and all that, but the living part. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Well, what we've always looked at and done is that we feel like, one of the things that's important, being where we are and the children that we deal with, is to help them to recognize the importance of their story, their narrative. And I think, one of the things that I once again recognize is that much of, what I grew up seeing oftentimes were stories, of course, that I could relate to, but oftentimes they weren't told, or the way they were told. I mean, it was often through someone else's gaze. I mean, it oftentimes wasn't necessarily resonating out. So a lot of what we do and what we try to do is make sure that we are exposing our young people and giving them a voice, helping them to understand and helping them to, recognize that ultimately, when we teach you the technique, it's about bringing your voice to that technique. It's about bringing your perspective to that. And we do that one way is through really, helping them to understand where they come from. For me, I have a BFA and an MFA in painting. And so, within painting and within that structure, I mean, I learned all about Western art, and there was very little of who I was just in my heritage and where I come from, within that history and what was taught within our institutions that were teaching the arts. So, really helping our students to recognize what's happening in the Harlem Renaissance and all these other amazing contributions that they can relate to. And, and that's at the end of the day what it's all about, right? I mean, I think that, people who are choreographing dance or making music or theater or television or whatever art form or visual art, we're essentially telling our story or conveying our experiences and sharing our narrative. And at the end of the day, for the most part, the human experience is more alike than it is different. But I think that showing it in these, with its stylistic differences or just cultural differences or nuances make it special, and it gives us a view in. And I think that's what's rich. I mean, in visual arts, they say unity and variety. That is the key to great design, for it to be unified, but for it to have variety. Yeah. I hope I answered your question. I don't know if it did.
No, that's a great answer to that question. So I noticed that we're like about 10 minutes over 7. Can we hang on to you all for another 5 minutes? Lisa, you're back with us? You okay? Okay. Why don't we just do this? Let's just go around. Can you tell I'm a teacher? Let's go around the room. Raise your hand. Let's go around and just. James asked this question after the first episode, and we didn't do it last week, but I thought it was fascinating. If you had one thing, you could wave that magic wand, which of course we can't, and we're all going to work instead. But if you could wave that magic wand, it's the one thing that, for Theater Lens and just in general, you would like to see happen in the coming days. Anybody? Maybe it's because James didn't ask. He was more provocative.
No, I have an answer. I'm going to give everybody else a chance to say something. I have a magic wand that I would like to see happen.
Yeah. Okay. Dan, did you raise your hand? No.
Yeah. First thing I would like to see come back are teleplays.
Yeah.
I think some of our most famous writers came out of teleplays. Some of our greatest plays and movies. I mean, we forget that 12 Angry Men was a play that never was produced. Then it was done as an hour live TV show, then done again as a 2-hour movie, hour 40-minute movie, and then now done on the stage. And those are all from teleplays. And I think that's a practical thing. And just to go what other people are saying, I've been trying for years to start a group for old straight men who don't use drugs in the theater, but I haven't gotten much support.
I don't even know what the. Well, okay, so let me ask one last question, because somebody said earlier about preaching to the choir. I think that was Dan. What can we do to get? Now, I know we've talked a lot about bringing different communities in to our theater world as audiences. And we mentioned earlier that, when there's a really solid piece of theater that, and we honor audiences' intelligence, it can do something. Is there a way to reach the audience that we're not reaching? The audience that we're not reaching that wouldn't necessarily seem to be on our side of things, if you know what I mean. How do we?
That's what teleplay would do.
You think it would be through live television as opposed to live theater?
Yeah.
Interesting. Anybody else? You know what I'm asking? Am I making sense?
Yeah,
No.
Nobody has an answer. But.
Yeah,
Can I answer the magic wand question, Joe?
Yeah, anything. Sure.
Okay. If I could wave a magic wand, I would eliminate the student loan debt of
Yes.
all of the creators right now. I mean, when we talk about well-being, a lot of our most brilliant artists are buried under debt. They're choosing between rent and choosing between eating and choosing between healthcare. And I don't even know how you can begin to be a part of the conversation when you are literally just trying to keep your head above water.
Amen.
We need those people and we need those voices, but they are seriously hampered right now.
I would add healthcare. I would add, my magic wand would give everybody healthcare so that working artists, at least they don't have to worry about that.
I'll tell you this, working in London becomes, and James will attest to this, it's much easier to produce a play because you're not paying all kinds of things you're paying here and one of the reasons I'm bringing it up, Melia, is because national. So you're not paying, costs.
Listen, I have the honor to serve on the SDC executive board. That's the labor union for theater directors and choreographers, and it's a great labor union. But we keep confronting the fact that folks, that theaters don't have the funds to pay for people's health insurance. It's the version of equity. So I think it would make a huge difference. I mean, my magic wand has to do with November, and I don't mean to politicize the episode, but I would just say my magic wand is going in one direction, and it's all about November right now.
Well, speaking of a magic wand, there's James Anthony Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I wanted to ask everyone, I'm going to call you out by name because everyone will have to answer. But I mean, what do you think right now, or what would you like in the future to define us as American artists? Let's start with Miss Bensussen. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you.
That's good.
Who are you asking first?
I was at Melia. Yeah, were you still thinking?
Why?
Yes.
I'm the loudmouth so far.
Just because you're in the box, no particular reason. It's just easier for my brain.
An American artist. I would say that right here on the screen we have extraordinary American artists. I appreciate and I'm grateful for the hyphen in American culture: Jewish American, Black American, Italian American, Lebanese American. But I think it would be a wonderful thing to sort of view the fact that the idiosyncratic, unique voice of that reflects a journey through generations and different cultures is actually the American voice.
Thank you. Mr. Pryor.
Okay. Can you say the question one more time for me?
Oh, I hope I remember it. What do you think defines us, or what would you like to define us as American artists?
You know, I would have to plug into, just our variety, our diversity. I think that, for me, I think the richness of the variation in the storytelling that can come out of America is uniquely American in many, for me. And I think that for me is what I'd love to see more of, is our art be more reflective of who we are actually as a people.
Nice. Mr. Lauria.
Well, it's a very conventional answer, but what defines our culture is the play. Like right now, if you were to define America, it would be Hamilton, with its diversity, with its message about everyone is free and everyone has the same rights. So I think by helping new writing step forward, our culture steps forward. And that to me defines us. But we can only do it through new plays. We can't keep going back. Every time there's a war, they want to do All My Son. And no young kid has ever even heard of a founding. They don't have them anymore. So it has to be putting new writers like yourself, and their work will define us as Americans.
Nice, thank you. Hope artistic directors heard that.
That's it.
Girod, Miss Girod. Kelley.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to articulate this well, James.
I'm sure you are.
I'll muddle through it. Maybe my response starts with what divides us as Americans, and it's that my history shouldn't be different from yours. I shouldn't have to know the American history and then Black history. Black history is American history, American history. What I want to define us is when your that what comes out in your writing is also anxiety that also comes out of a history that was yours too, because you were a part of it. And this is why I say I don't know if I'm articulating this well, James, because like whoever's sitting next to me should have grown up with the same fear of losing their children, because they also are so in touch with the history of enslaved women losing their children that is palpable to them too.
Thank you. I think you said that perfectly. Mr. Shalhoub.
Oh yeah, sorry. I think all of these points are really, really well taken. But I think we cannot. I think what I would like to see too, wrapped into all of this, because of the way the world is shrinking, and because of there's so much kind of divisiveness and all of this America First bullshit that's happening. What I would really like to see wrapped in all of this is that there's that we're that the American theater kind of reaches across, to other continents, and with some awareness of what's going on in the rest of the world, and what those things that are those areas where we have common ground, and those areas where we're not that different, and to bring in an awareness of the global picture. That I just don't think there's enough of that, especially for the young audiences, especially for because they're sort of fed, uh, endless streams of misinformation and profiling and prejudices and nonsense from various different quarters, whether it's their their people in their family or their educational system or whatever, or movies, especially movies and video games and all this nonsense. I want to see a kind of an acknowledgement of that this world is really getting, the world is shrinking. The globe is all, it's all one thing. We're all one thing. Does that make sense?
That does. Humanity first. That makes sense. Miss Arundel, or Mrs. Arundel, sorry.
Hey, James.
Hey.
So I think my answer needs that magic wand. I think that since they're trying to shut us down anyway with funding and taking our voice away, why not get shut down for doing something radical like telling the truth? And this is connected to what Kelley talked about and what Tony just said, that what if we focused on telling the truth about our connectedness, about that we are one, and that there's this really dark illusion that we are separate, that there's this really ridiculous, dark illusion that when we say that something is not sustainable, that what we mean is that it's not sustainable for me. Like, I won't be served anymore if I don't find a different way to work this out, which isn't really sustainable for others. Like, what if we told the truth on stage? What if it became this place that our acting teachers, I don't know about you all, but I was in a high school performing arts 1,000 years ago, where they made me believe that I could change the world. Where we tell these kids, you get on stage and you tell the story about your humanity. And if you tell the truth, the vulnerable truth, the transparent truth, the painful truth, that it will change the world because they will see themselves. Because we're human. So humans first, like James said, like, this truth and reconciliation that South Africa went through and is still going through. What if we had that truth and reconciliation in art on stage, and we became really radical so that they wanted to take the money away for a good reason? Oh, they're telling too much truth. They're healing too many people. They're opening up too many lives. People are putting their hearts out on the table. So yeah, magic wands all over the place.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe, Felicia, you guys want to add to it or not?
Okay. I'm sorry, James. Can you just ask the
I'm
question
sorry,
one more
man,
time?
I've got to jump, but I really love being with you all, but I'm just got to go. I'm so sorry.
Bye,
All right.
Tony.
All right.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Tony. Mwah.
Okay, so the question was, I hope I remember this right. What do you think it means to be an American artist, or what would you like it to mean to be an American artist?
Define.
I would like it to mean
Define.
that.
Oh, defined. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, how do I like it to be defined? I would
Yeah.
like an American artist to be defined as a person who could tell their own truths and have a voice and let their voice be heard anywhere. So they wouldn't have to be stifled by their voice of their truth. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
I would keep it simple. It's kind of an amalgam maybe of what everybody said, but truly I think what should define an American artist, and I think it does in large part, and this would go to the people that Eric is grooming, to be fearless. And by fearless, I mean it in both ways. Fearless meaning, fearless, yeah, but that coming from not having to feel fear about, as Lisa said very eloquently, telling the truth. That should be that's what American art is at its best. Let's put it that way, and should be. So, all right, I'm going to tell the truth. At 7:25, we told you all maybe, and everybody was kind enough to stick around, and I could hear Brooke cooking in the background while
This was great, though. What a great group of people. I'm really honored to be with all of you.
Like honored.
Fervent hope is that we all get to collaborate. I mean, down the road, either as this group, parts of this group, or whatever, because it's
Absolutely.
Thanks to our audience. Thanks to Berkshire
I don't want
Museum.
to work with Joe again. Please, no, I don't want to work with Joe again.
We hope to collaborate with everyone but Dan. I think we've collaborated.
We gotta get one of these plays, Joe, up at Harlem School of the Arts. Let me tell you,
I want to do a season with, Eric and Kelley's programming as part of Hartford Stage.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
We're ready, Melia. We're ready.
Before we go, can I share an idea before we go?
Yeah.
If I could do anything for the theater, has anyone seen Doll's House 2? I would ask 4 writers to come together, agree on a set and a number of characters, and pick a character like Biff in Death of a Salesman. And I would, if I had the money, I would give a black writer like James and say, bring Biff home 15 years from now. I'd give a Hispanic writer and do it in Dallas. I would get a Asian writer and do it in San Francisco, and get a gay writer and do it in New York. And I would rotate them around the country. And the next year I would do it with women and women's characters. And the only contact the writers have, the only contact they have is the first meeting on the set and what character from history do we pick. And I think it would cause a discussion around America about cultures and understanding and what we don't understand and what we do understand. And it gives us a platform for everything you guys have been talking about. That's what I would do if I had the money.
Women writing towards these issues too, just saying.
Well, yeah. So Dan, go make some money so you can do that. Speaking of money, Dan, I'll make for anybody who wants to make a contribution to Berkshire Playwrights Lab, it would make James very happy.
Yep. Bring us some money.
All I care.
Donate.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Here.
Bye.
Thank you.